Nestled on the outskirts of a quaint town lies my beloved farmhouse, a structure that has been a refuge for my family for generations. The wooden beams, weathered yet sturdy, tell tales of laughter and tears experienced over the years. Each crack in the walls and creak of the floorboards resonates with memories, from holiday gatherings overflowing with joy to quiet evenings spent watching the sun dip below the horizon. Built in the late 1800s, my farmhouse is more than just a residence, it's a living testament to my family's legacy. As a child, I spent endless summer days exploring its expansive grounds, tending to gardens bursting with wildflowers and vegetables. I inherited it from my grandfather, who had always envisioned this home as a sacred space, filled with love and warmth. It was here that I learned the value of hard work, the joy of simple pleasures, and how to navigate life's complexities. However, what once felt like a sanctuary soon became a battleground when I decided to make some changes to the property. The town had established a new homeowners association determined to enforce uniformity among residences. In their eyes, my farmhouse's rustic charm was an eyesore against their vision for community aesthetics. They argued that its peeling paint and untrimmed hedges detracted from the neighborhood's appeal. At first, I was taken aback by their complaint. My heart raced as I read their letter outlining the enforcement rules and demands for immediate renovations, rules that seemed to overlook the character and soul of my home. Ignoring decades of lineage and personality felt harsh and unjust. As frustration simmered within me, I began to ponder what truly defined beauty in this world. Was it conformity or individuality? Little did I know that my contemplations would spur an unexpected transformation that would take center stage in this ongoing saga with the HOA. Days after I received the HOA's letter, I found myself sitting at my kitchen table, staring at the stark white envelope that had disrupted my peaceful life. The Homeowners Association had outlined their concerns with meticulous detail, and as I read through their claims, an unsettling mix of disbelief and anger bubbled within me. Their primary accusation was that my farmhouse's peeling paint and overgrown hedges not only diminished its charm but also detracted from the overall aesthetic appeal of the neighborhood. The letter described my home as an eyesore, a label that felt like a personal attack on my family's legacy. They insisted that it violated several community standards regarding property maintenance and curb appeal. Among their demands was a request for immediate renovations. Specifically, they wanted me to repaint the house in a neutral color palette and trim back the unruly hedges. It was as if they were asking me to strip away the character that made my home uniquely mine. As I processed their words, the absurdity of the situation began to settle in. How could they expect me to conform to an arbitrary standard that disregarded the history embedded within these walls? My farmhouse had been built long before such regulations existed, and its worn appearance held countless stories of laughter, love, and resilience. Feeling overwhelmed, I reached out to neighbors who had lived in the area for years. Some shared my frustration with the HOA's rigid rules, others expressed fear of retaliation should they speak out against such authority. The more I spoke with them about my situation, the clearer it became that this issue was not just about paint or hedges, it symbolized a struggle between individuality and conformity in our community. As I contemplated how to respond, I realized this battle extended far beyond mere aesthetics. It challenged the heart of what home truly means, a place shaped by memories rather than dictated by rules. As I ruminated on the HOA's letter, a deep sense of frustration welled up within me, mingling with disbelief. How could anyone look at my farmhouse, the heart of my childhood, and see an eyesore? Each crack in its walls, every faded patch of paint, held stories that shaped who I was. It felt like a betrayal to have someone reduce it to mere aesthetics and demand that I erase its character in favor of some sterile uniformity. The emotional weight of the complaint pressed heavily on my chest. Memories flooded back, my grandfather sitting on the porch, sharing stories of days gone by while teaching me how to plant a garden. The laughter of family gatherings echoed within those weathered rooms, fueling my attachment to this home. To think that this place, where I had cultivated a personal identity, could be deemed undesirable by strangers felt like an assault on my very being. My mind swung between anger and sadness as I considered the HOA's demands. They wanted neutral colors, yet how could I reconcile such a bland directive with the vibrant life brimming within those walls? Painting over the farmhouse's unique charm felt like erasing pieces of my heritage and dishonouring everything my family had built there. This wasn't just about paint, it was about respect for the history wrapped around the structure. As I confided in neighbors who shared their own frustrations with the association's rigid standards, I found some relief in collective empathy. However, listening to their stories also reminded me of how isolated and powerless I felt against the HOA's authority. The balance between preserving my family's legacy and adhering to community pressures weighed heavily on my heart. This conflict illuminated a fundamental truth: our homes are more than buildings. They represent our identities, shaped by experiences and emotions over time. As I contemplated my next steps, I realized that standing firm against this unwarranted intrusion would not just defend my farmhouse but also honor every memory it contained. In the days that followed, the frustration simmered into a fire of determination. As I paced the worn wooden floors of my farmhouse, I began to envision a response that would encapsulate not only my defiance against the HOA's complaint but also my love for this home. The idea sparked unexpectedly. What if I painted the house a bright, audacious neon orange? It would be an act of rebellion, a bold declaration that I would not let anyone dictate how I should express my identity or my family's legacy. The more I considered this wild color choice, the more it resonated with me. Neon orange was anything but neutral. It represented vibrancy and life, qualities I wanted to celebrate rather than suppress. It would be a visual proclamation that while others might see an eyesore, I saw beauty in uniqueness and individuality. Each stroke of paint would become a testament to my refusal to conform to arbitrary standards imposed by strangers. I imagined how the luminous color would contrast against the greenery of the surrounding landscape. Instead of blending in, my farmhouse would stand out as a beacon of personality and spirit. This decision wasn't merely about aesthetics, it was an embodiment of resilience and self-expression. It was time to reclaim what was rightfully mine, the joy and pride that came with owning a home filled with memories. As I gathered supplies, excitement bubbled within me. Friends expressed surprise and curiosity at my choice, some laughed at what they deemed a reckless idea, while others praised my courage. While I knew some might criticize my decision, I felt buoyed by the knowledge that this action was fundamentally mine. It stemmed from deep-seated convictions about what home truly means. In choosing neon orange, I aimed to redefine beauty on my own terms, weaving together threads of history and individuality in a way that no HOA rule could ever erase. As I stepped back from the first brushstroke, I felt exhilarated. This was not just painting, it was a statement of who I am and what my farmhouse represents. The day finally arrived when I would put my bold vision into action, armed with paintbrushes, buckets of neon orange paint, and an unwavering resolve. As I set up on the front porch, the sun shone brightly, illuminating the building's rustic facade that had been neglected for too long. The first stroke of paint felt liberating, each brush gliding across the surface a vibrant statement against the demands of the HOA. However, the painting process was not without its challenges. The peeling would require more preparation than I had anticipated. I spent hours scraping off old paint and sanding rough patches until my arms ached. Despite the physical labor, my heart raced with excitement. Every second brought me closer to transforming my farmhouse into a personal canvas. As I continued to work, I noticed neighbors watching from a distance. Some looked on with intrigue, while others whispered amongst themselves. Anticipating mixed reactions, I reminded myself why I began this endeavor. It was about self-expression and reclaiming my space. Here, in a community often governed by conformity, I was determining my own identity. Occasionally, a few neighbors approached, their responses varying widely. Some offered enthusiastic support, admiring my courage to embrace such a radical change. Others expressed concern, questioning whether I truly understood the implications of standing out so brightly in a neighborhood dominated by subdued hues. These conversations stirred a whirlwind of emotions. Encouragement fortified my resolve while doubt threatened to creep in. Yet, as each wall transformed under my brushstrokes, I felt an overwhelming sense of purpose. The neon orange became more than just paint, it symbolized resilience against societal pressures. I found solace in the fact that I was not only reclaiming my farmhouse but also making a statement about individuality and belonging. With every completed section of color and the rising sun warming my back, I knew this journey went beyond mere aesthetics. It was a reclamation of my heritage, a vibrant homage to every cherished memory embedded within these walls, a reminder that this home would reflect both my family's legacy and my own vibrant spirit. As the neon orange paint brightened my farmhouse, reactions from neighbors began to pour in, a tapestry of support and criticism that reflected the divided sentiments in our community. I could see heads turning as people walked by, their expressions ranging from shock to curiosity. Some approached me with wide smiles, their enthusiasm palpable. "I love it," one neighbor exclaimed, a sparkle in her eye. She had always admired my spirit. The vibrant color resonated with her belief that homes should reflect personality rather than conformity. However, not everyone shared this excitement. A couple of neighbors who had previously accepted the HOA's complaint approached with more measured reactions. "Are you sure about this?" one man asked, frowning. "It's going to stick out like a sore thumb." I could feel the weight of his words, laden with concern for what he deemed neighborhood harmony. Their unease echoed a fear I sensed rippling through some of our community, a sense of losing control over the neighborhood's aesthetic. In conversations at local shops or during weekend gatherings, whispers often arose when friends discussed my bold choice. While some praised my courage and described me as a trailblazer for individuality, others worried aloud about setting a precedent that might invite unwanted changes around them. What if others start painting their houses wild colors? Another neighbor mused, half joking but clearly unsettled by the notion. Despite the chatter, both supportive and critical, I stood firm in my decision. The vibrant orange was more than just paint, it was a statement against oppressive aesthetics and an embrace of freedom. As I continued working on the house, each pass of my brush became a dialogue with my neighbors. It invited discussion about conformity versus self-expression. The mixed feedback made me realize that change often disorients those comfortable in familiarity. But amid it all, I felt proud to be part of that conversation, addressing not just how we present our homes but also challenging societal notions of beauty and belonging within our own community. With every stroke on the freshly painted walls, I was crafting not only my identity but also sparking reflections on how we choose to define ourselves amidst conformity. As the neon orange paint dried and the farmhouse began to gleam with vibrant life, it didn't take long for the Homeowners Association to respond. A few days after I completed the painting, I received another letter. This time, it was more direct and laden with authority. The HOA declared that my bold choice was an outright violation of their community standards, citing specific clauses regarding exterior color schemes and aesthetic harmony. They insisted that I must revert the color back to something more acceptable within a week or face potential fines. Reading their ultimatum sparked a mix of emotions, anger, resolve, and even a hint of amusement. Did they really think they could dictate not just how my home looked but also how I expressed myself? Their arguments centered around maintaining property values and ensuring uniformity, yet all I could see was an attempt to stifle individuality in favor of blandness. In their eyes, my farmhouse had transformed from a cherished family legacy into just another asset that needed to conform. I decided not to take their threats lightly. Instead of succumbing to fear or frustration, I saw an opportunity to stand my ground. I reached out to other homeowners who had expressed support during my painting journey, gathering allies who felt equally stifled by the HOA's rigid rules. Together, we drafted a response outlining our collective belief in the importance of personal expression and unique identities within our neighborhood. As we sent off our letter, detailing our intentions to resist the HOA's demands while upholding the community spirit of individuality, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't merely about paint, it was about creating space for voices like mine, the voice of someone who cherished history yet yearned for freedom. In the days that followed, I prepared myself for what might come next, further complaints or even legal actions from the HOA. But as I stood in front of my farmhouse each morning, basking in its bright glow under the sun, I knew that every ounce of resistance would be worth it, a testament not only to my family's legacy but also to the power of self-expression against conformity. As the conflict with the Homeowners Association escalated, a surprising wave of support emerged from the community. Neighbors began to rally around me, some even expressing their own frustrations with the HOA's rigid regulations. One evening, I hosted a small gathering on my porch, inviting those who had shown interest in my journey. To my delight, people from all walks of life showed up, older couples who had lived in the neighborhood for decades, young families just starting out, and even some newcomers who appreciated creative expression. During our discussions, stories flowed about their own experiences with the HOA and how many felt stifled by its rules. I once had to fight just to paint my fence a different shade of gray, shared one neighbor, shaking his head in disbelief. Others echoed similar tales of frustration over minor alterations that had been met with resistance. It became clear that many felt as I did. The HOA's regulations often prioritized uniformity over the very essence of community, diversity and individuality. Inspired by this newfound solidarity, we decided to take action. A group formed to draft a petition addressing the HOA's stringent policies, advocating for a more lenient approach that would allow homeowners greater freedom in expressing their identities through their properties. The petition quickly gained traction, signatures poured in as more residents recognized the need for change. With every signature gathered, our bond strengthened. Neighbors began discussing organizing community meetings where residents could voice their opinions and experiences regarding HOA regulations openly. The idea was to create an atmosphere where everyone felt empowered to express themselves without fear of retribution. As we prepared to present our petition to the HOA board, I felt a renewed sense of hope and purpose. This wasn't just about my farmhouse anymore, it was about fostering a community where every homeowner could feel free to showcase their individuality without succumbing to conformity. Together, we were building a movement that championed personal expression while challenging outdated regulations, a testament to what could happen when neighbors unite for a common cause. With each step forward, I felt that we were redefining not only our homes but also what it meant to be part of a truly vibrant community. As the story of my neon orange farmhouse spread through the community, it caught the attention of local media outlets and social media platforms. News of my defiance against the Homeowners Association quickly became a topic of discussion, with various news stations covering the unique situation. Reporters came to interview me about my motivations, and I found myself standing in front of cameras, sharing not just my story but also those of fellow homeowners who felt similarly stifled by HOA regulations. The media attention brought a flood of reactions online. Social media buzzed with mixed sentiments, some praised my audacity while others criticized what they perceived as a challenge to neighborhood order. Hashtags like #NeonOrangeRebellion began trending locally, and discussions about personal expression versus HOA control proliferated. Posts from supporters flooded in, many sharing images of their own homes adorned in bright colors or unique designs that broke away from convention. It painted a broader picture of how individuality could coexist within community spaces. As more people engaged with the story online, it transformed into a rallying cry for freedom of expression beyond just our neighborhood. Many began to question the authority of HOAs in general, discussing how these organizations sometimes prioritized uniformity over the rich tapestry of diversity represented in individual homes. Articles and blog posts popped up examining the role of HOAs in contemporary neighborhoods and sparking debates about property rights. The increased awareness also inspired neighboring communities facing similar issues to reach out, sharing their own experiences with restrictive regulations. My once lonely battle against the HOA morphed into a broader movement advocating for personal expression and individuality within residential guidelines. Through this attention, we highlighted more than just my decision to paint my farmhouse. We ignited a conversation about rights, community identity, and the essence of home. It was exhilarating to witness so many people rallying around the idea that our homes should reflect who we are, not merely fit into a cookie-cutter mold dictated by an organization. With each article published and every social media post liked or shared, I felt encouraged that change could be possible, not only for my farmhouse but for many other homes yearning for authenticity and vibrancy in a conformist world. As I reflect on this whirlwind experience surrounding my neon orange farmhouse, a profound understanding has emerged about self-expression, community dynamics, and the importance of standing up for one's beliefs. Initially, I approached this journey with a mix of apprehension and hope, uncertain how the bold choice would be received. However, what began as a personal statement against the HOA transformed into a rallying cry for many in our community. This journey taught me that self-expression is not merely about individual freedom, it is also about fostering a sense of belonging and resilience among those who feel marginalized by rigid norms. The support I received from neighbors illuminated the shared desire for individuality in a world that often pressures us into conformity. Conversations around my farmhouse became avenues for discussing broader issues regarding property rights and creative expression, issues that resonated deeply with many. Throughout this process, I discovered the power of collective action. By rallying together to oppose the HOA's restrictive regulations, we fostered a sense of community that transcended individual experiences and highlighted our shared values. The petition we created was more than just words on paper, it was an assertion that our neighborhood should celebrate diversity rather than suppress it. Standing firm not only solidified my convictions but also galvanized others to find their voices and advocate for their own rights. Moreover, this experience reaffirmed my belief in the importance of courage when facing arbitrary authority. There were moments of doubt and fear, worries about backlash from the HOA or judgment from neighbors who cherished conformity, but each brushstroke of orange paint chiseled away at those fears. It reminded me that our homes are extensions of ourselves and should reflect our identities unapologetically. As I gaze upon my vibrant farmhouse now, I see more than just an act of rebellion. I see a beacon of hope for authenticity within a community striving to balance individuality with collective harmony. This journey has underscored the notion that embracing who we are can inspire change, not just in ourselves but in those around us, prompting them to embrace their truths as well. Ultimately, I've learned that standing up for one's beliefs can pave the way for a richer tapestry of community life, one where everyone feels empowered to express their true selves without fear or reservation. As the tides of community support and media attention grew stronger, the HOA was compelled to respond to the mounting pressure. After several weeks of escalating discussions and public outcry, a meeting was scheduled between representatives from the HOA and a group of homeowners, including me. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation as we gathered to address not only my situation but also the broader concerns regarding HOA regulations. During the meeting, I presented our petition filled with signatures from residents advocating for more flexible guidelines that embraced personal expression. The discussion was lively, with numerous homeowners sharing their stories about feeling constrained by the HOA's rigid rules. Many argued that individuality should be valued and that our neighborhood's richness could thrive through diversity rather than uniformity. To my surprise, the HOA board members were receptive to our arguments. They acknowledged that while they aimed to maintain property values and community aesthetics, they had perhaps overlooked the importance of fostering a sense of identity among homeowners. After some negotiation, we reached a compromise. The HOA agreed to revise its policies to allow homeowners greater freedom in choosing exterior colors within certain guidelines. This meant that while vibrant hues could still be subject to approval, there would now be more room for creativity. The outcome felt like a victory not just for me but for everyone who had felt similarly stifled. As I stood in front of my neon orange farmhouse, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride, not just in my home but in our collective achievement. This experience taught us all valuable lessons about advocacy and community engagement. The changes inspired others in neighboring areas to reassess their own HOAs, prompting discussions about how such organizations could evolve to better reflect the desires of their residents. Through this journey, I learned that standing up for one's beliefs can lead not only to personal empowerment but also catalyze meaningful change within a community. In the end, what began as a struggle against conformity blossomed into an opportunity for growth, both personally and collectively, showing us all that embracing individuality can enrich our neighborhoods and strengthen our bonds as a community. As I gazed upon my bright farmhouse under the sun, it stood as a symbol not just of defiance but of hope and unity, a reminder that authenticity can pave the way for positive change.